Hi guys, Max here. So today I want to show you how to export and import properly skeletal meshes from Blender into Maya in pipeline workflow. So I have this game ready mesh, as you can see here, with some bones already placed. They are just only the form bones, but the center of the object and the root. So there are a couple of things we have to take care about. The first one is the name. Try to avoid to have dots in the name. Just for the sake of demonstration, I'm gonna add a dot here. I'm gonna call it like body raboy. And this is the first thing. The second thing is that this model, a game model, has sharp edges. Okay, here and there. I have one here, and I have another one around the hip. So I have to export them in Maya, and I have to be sure that the normals in Maya, inside Maya, are unlocked, because people in Maya wants to work with unlocked normal. What are those unlock normal thing? If you don't know, it's basically the same thing we have in Blender. It's called inside the geometry data the custom split normals. Okay, sometimes you import some meshes from other softwares, and often you have to clear the custom split normal data. So it's the same as to happen in Maya. So it's a common request when you work in a pipeline. So first thing I want to be sure is that my model is in rest position. Okay, so it doesn't have any position assigned to it. So second thing, let's select everything. Okay, and F4 to access the export panel. Export as FBX. Let's export the select objects, the armature and the mesh, and then we are going to export also the geometry. Let's keep the options like this. Inside the armature panel, I'm gonna uncheck add leaf bones and also uncheck bake animation. I'm gonna export on a desktop, export it. All right, so let's jump into Maya. Here we are in Maya, okay, Maya 2024, and I have here my FBX, so just drag and drop it in the scene. First thing that I usually do is change the shading view into default material. So let's see, first of all, the naming. If you remember before, I put the dot after body, and the dot in the FBX format is going to be replaced with this string. So don't put dots in the naming. The second thing is that if we are going to check like the meshes, the properties, we notice that the meshes are rotated on 90 degrees on the x-axis, and the scale is at 100. That's because basically Blender works with the Z up, okay, and Maya works with the Y up, and Maya works in centimeters while Blender works by default in meters. So basically when FBX takes care about it and properly transfer the scale between the two softwares. The bad thing is that, of course, you have to freeze all these transformations, otherwise animators and the setup in Maya is going to be angry at you, trust me. So we have also the same problem on the armature. If you take a look about the situation we have here, we have this armature locator, which contains inside the root bone of our hierarchy. So we don't like the fact that it's inside this locator. And also, if you take a look at the transformation, we have the root rotated 90 degrees for the same reason I told you before. And the armature locator also has some transformation, like the scale as 100%. The last thing that we must be sure to have fixed, to be sure to have the normals unlocked. How to do that? In the import settings, let's click on the options. Instead of file type best guess, let's pick FBX. Okay. Now go down and let's edit the preset. Okay, so we are here, and be sure to have the unlock normals checked. In this way, when you import the mesh, basically the mesh is going to have the normals unlocked. How to check if the normals are locked or unlocked? Basically, you select the mesh, you can go in display, we can go in polygons, and let's turn on vertex normal. And we see that we have some lines. If the lines are red, that means that the normals are unlocked. And if they are yellow, means that they are locked. Okay, so just to double check. Let's start to fix something. First of all, let me show the bones with this button here. We see that the weights are here, and everything works as expected, right? There is a problem. If we pick bones, okay, we see that we have some rotation in the bones, and this is something that the setupper usually don't like. So they want that basically when you select all the bones and you rotate at 0, they basically go back in default pose or rest pose, which is not the case here. So we have to fix that. How to fix that? So let's go step by step. First of all, we have to store the weights. Okay, there are two ways by default in Maya to do that. The first one is going into the form panel and export weights. This is the best method, but the problem is that you can export weights of one single mesh at the time. So in this case, I have a bunch of meshes, so I have to generate an XML file for each one of them, and I have to reimport later on each one of them one by one. Usually for game models, you really prefer to work on one single mesh, so let's go that way. So we can select all the meshes, go into modeling and mesh, and inside the combine mesh options, let's check combine skinning too. So basically when all the meshes are combined, they retain the weight pane. So apply and close. And let me double check if everything works. Perfect. So now we have one mesh and we can export the weights. So inside rigging, the form, export weights. Let me save it on desktop. Weights, okay, and export. Done. Now we can edit, delete by history. So now the skeleton doesn't affect it anymore, and so we can now freeze the scale and the rotation of the two nodes in this way. So I can get rid of this useless armature node. So now I have the root and the polysurface, which is my Ultra Boy character. So now I have to rebind the mesh to the skeleton. Okay, so select the mesh, select the skeleton, and let's do skin, bind. All right. Now if we rotate the bones, we see that we get a bunch of errors. So let's select the mesh, go inside the form, and import weights. And let's import the weights from the XML file and import. And now everything should work just fine as before. Very good. But what if you want to keep the meshes separated? So this is my character with all the part splitted. All right. What we want to do is store the weights in another way. Inside skin, let's go into export weight maps. Okay, and we see that we can choose the map size, okay, and image format. What does it mean? Basically, it means that to export the weights with this other system, Maya relies on UV mapping. Okay, we can see that every time I choose an object, this object is going to get added to the list. All right, so that means that we can export multiple weights at the same time. But the problem is that this method doesn't work if we have overlapping UVs. Let's check out my UVs of this model. It's a game ready model, so I have a lot of overlapping UVs. If I export the weight map with these UVs, I'm going to have some problem. For example, I'm using a lot of symmetrical UVs. So for the shoes, for example, I have only one shoes that is symmetrical. How to fix that? So let's make a copy of these UVs. So UV editor, select the UV map, and let's press copy. And I have a new set of UVs. Let's call it like weights. In this case, we select this one, we press update, we close it. Let's go into modify, layout, open the option, and let's put the texture map size at 4K with the shell padding and at 16. Let's lay out the UVs, whatever, okay, and we get something like this. Perfect. So we are going to use this UV layout to store the weight painting. All right, so let me select everything. Let's go into rigging, skin, export weight maps. Let's keep it image format as a IFF, it's fine. 4K, the resolution is really important in this case because we have to reimport those information back. So if the texture is too small, we cannot even store all the proper information inside the image. So let's export, let's pick a folder. Let's use desktop as always, weights, okay, and save. And now just press yes and wait that all the maps are exported. So we can actually preview the images that we have exported. In this case, I'm using XNView viewer to check them, and we see that basically for every bone and every part we have a black and white map that defines the weights of every single bone. So let's re-import the weight, but before doing that we have to do a bunch of things. The first one is delete the history. Okay, we delete the history, we can freeze all the transformation, right? And we do the same thing with the bones. Okay, freeze all. Perfect. Let's extract the root from the armature. Let's delete the armature node. Also, let me select all the bones and change the radius of them at 1, so it's a little bit more clear and easy to select. Now let's select all the objects, select the root, and go to skin, and again bind skin. And now we get something like this, same errors of before, right? Now reselect all my objects. Let's go into skin, let's go into import weight maps, select all the clusters, say import. Let's go keep this file called weights.weightmap, which basically is going to drive all the maps and to be reassigned on the various weights. And let's say open, the magic happens, and everything should work just fine. So this is how you re-import all the weights on a model with multiple objects. All right, so the last thing that you might want to do is go into modeling tab, UVs, UV set editor, and delete the additional, if it's needed, of course, delete the additional weight maps. Okay, perfect. So the problem is that when you delete a UV set, something remains stored in the history. So you have to go to edit, delete by type, and press none the former history. This way, you see, we still have the bones and the rotation of every bone is at 0. So even if I put my model in pose, let's say, and if I select all the bones and I bring back the rotation to 0, they go back to their rest pose. And that's it. So in this way you pass the model with the correct weights to setup team or the animators, and they are going to be just happy. And also you keep the flexibility of doing bone placing and weight painting inside Blender. It's way more convenient and less destructive. So see you next time. Bye guys.